Dale?
Sure. I think, Don, should we do something daring and kick off 2021 and leave our cameras on the whole time?
Yeah, let's be crazy. Let's be crazy. Yeah, and people should know they can minimize that window if they want.
Yes. So my name is Dale Lutz. I'm one of the two co-founders, and you can probably guess who the other one is, of Safe Software. And Don and I were just talking that I think we've been at this like 28 years or something like that. It's
more than half our lives. Yeah, that's right.
So anyway, we get to sit in an interesting position in the industry and survey the landscape of changes in the world of data and the world of data integration and what that means for customers and how we can try to keep adding value as people move their information from where it is to where they need it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, in business you got to have a certain amount of luck. And we 28 years ago we chose to, you know, help people work with data, and the world of data just continues to explode. And we're gonna touch on that today. And Dale and I are technology guys at heart, and so you know this space has no end of things to get excited about. It just keeps changing and changing, and at Safe we love change. So yeah.
Excellent. So thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah,
and we'll,
thank you.
Go after it.
Okay, so data integration trends that you should watch in 2021.
Don, I think I forgot to mention. Oh yeah, unpause your screen. You're good to go.
Okay, great. No, anytime, Steph. Like Steph is, you know, kind of herding cats here, so.
Always watching.
Yeah. So 2020 is behind us, Dale.
Yeah, well, it's getting there anyway. I thought happiness was having Texas in my rearview mirror, but I think that actually 2020 in the rearview mirror is a little better.
Yeah.
Sorry to David, who's from Texas.
That's right. And data, you know, the importance of data throughout what we've all been through for 2020 with the pandemic and everything, and everybody working remotely, the importance of data continues to grow. And you know, and for businesses to make decisions, that's why they have data. The more value they can extract from the data, the better the decisions they can. And that's clearly a you know, what it's all about.
So for those that don't know about us, as Don and I said in the intro, we've been around for 25 or more years, actually 28 years-ish. And we keep saying it's 10,000 organizations. We kind of have stopped counting, but lots and lots of organizations around the world make use of our software to, again, move information from where it is to where they need it to be. We started off doing CAD to GIS, and you'll see in the next graph. And today, all types of data, actually lots of it non-spatial. We started off working largely with spatial data. Today, we're used for all kinds of non-spatial things too. Lots of countries and lots of partners. We ourselves don't do any services, but we have a network around the world of experts, some of whom are on the line today, I've seen, that absolutely know how to make data sing and dance when used in combination with our tool.
Yeah, and if you wonder what our technology is all about, it's simple. It's really simple. Help people get value from data, and as Dale alluded to, getting it from where it is to where it needs to be. Yeah. And so yeah, so there's all the different data types that we support, and with our trusted logo in the top right there. And you know, really, we love data, all kinds of data, and yeah, and I won't even talk about, you know, XML at all in this webinar, Dale, I promise that. So
for those that don't know, Don has a personal brand about loving XML. In fact, for Christmas, Safe got him his own website, ilovexml.com, and you could go there right now and check it out. So anyway, but this is kind of a progression of the journey that we've been on. Today, FME supports more than 500 places where data can live, and across all these different data types. And even there's never an end in sight in terms of the kinds of work we have to do.
Absolutely. And it's important that you're able to leverage for business more and more. It's important for business to be able to leverage all types of data, not be limited to tabular data or web services or anything, but everything. And we'll talk a little bit about that, why that's important too. So yeah, so today's webinar, Dale and I are going to talk about the things that we've observed, talking with our customers. You know, we also work closely with Gartner and follow their guidance, and just, you know, larger looking at the data market. I mean, Dale and I not only work in this space, we live in this space. We just love this space, and so we spend a lot of time just, you know, looking over the landscape, seeing what's coming, and planning for it. Yeah.
A lot of late night doom scrolling in Twitter, looking for non-political posts that are filled with nuggets. And actually, a lot of times between around 11 o'clock at night, I stumble across something that's pretty interesting. And so we're excited to share some of that with you today.
Absolutely. Yeah, so as a business, you know, it's all about getting value from data, and that's, you know, our mission statement as well. So you're going to see, we're going to talk about a number of trends or things that we see as being key to businesses getting the best value from their data. Yeah. And we have a bonus one that we're going to save. Yeah. Dale and I always like the, hey, one more thing.
Yeah.
And
That was not part of our practice round, was it, Don?
no, that's right. We like to, it's sort of like, you know, when people saw Star Wars, you know, nobody knew that Darth Vader was Luke's father till the end. So we like to hide stuff like that from the staff till they're watching it live. So if they haven't looked at the slide deck this morning, they're in for a nice surprise.
Or kind of in modern times, how Luke Skywalker showed up at the end of The Mandalorian. And sorry if that's a spoiler for some of the folks on the call, but hey, that's twice that Mark Hamill has been part of a big, well-kept secret. So we should really sign him for safe for some reason.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, I do have Baby Yoda here, so just in case people are wondering. So there we go. That was not planned. That was not in the dry run either. So yeah. So anyway, so data trends to watch for in 2021. Yeah. And so far we have all our years right, which is pretty good.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So the first one, embracing automation, and this is connecting applications to reduce human effort. And we see more and more organizations are, whoops, my slide didn't advance. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah. So more and more organizations are embracing automation in order to connect applications together and things like that. So I guess now we have a poll.
Yes.
Oh no, that's weird. I don't know why
There's
I did that, but we'll say it's a user error, i.e. me. I got excited and I clicked and pointed down there at the same time. So I apologize. Yeah. So automation happens at several levels. Obviously, one is an individual level. You know, you're working away and there's a task that you're doing repeatedly and it's a manual task. And so, you know, getting rid of that task at an individual level can save you and your organization lots of time and money so that you can then do higher value tasks. Yeah.
Yeah, and then kind of going up a level in a whole department within an organization, there's a need to automate the flow of data between the different systems that there are. So the first one was kind of helping people with their traditional repetitive tasks. The second one is really automating things that would be very hard to do manually, and often custom code or big IT projects take this on. But automation with a no-code solution can make that happen much faster.
Yeah, that's right. And and at the organizational level, that's where we're, you know, SAFE is run on many different organization level systems, and we have many automations that when something's done in one, it notifies another. Slack's one of our big ones, and a lot of systems will notify you when things happen in another tool, so that you don't have to go there looking for what's updated. You get notified that things are updated and things like that. So really, really valuable. Yeah. Okay, so now we're in for a poll question. This is where we hope Steph will step in to help us with this.
I've got you.
Yeah, so we're curious.
So where do you need automation the most? So within your organization, where do you see you needing it the most? Yeah. Individual, department, or organizational?
And you can select all three too if they all appeal to you.
Okay, it's not, look at that. I didn't read the question properly. That's right.
Vote early and vote often.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, look at the results pouring in.
Yeah, now we go. It's like one of those car races when you go to like a sporting event.
Yes.
On the big Jumbotron.
Boy, individual had sprung out to an early lead, but now it's fallen behind.
That's right.
All right, I'm gonna close this down in like 3 seconds. So last votes. All right, closing it down.
Perfect. And there you go. Pretty even, I gotta say, between department and organizational, but you can see the individual level. Yeah, definitely the trailer. But the thing is, automation is so key. It definitely, you can see from that, it cuts across all the different areas. Yeah.
I mean, from a product point of view, that's kind of interesting because the bottom two tend to be about application integration, which involves using APIs and attaching to other live systems, whereas the top one, individual, is much more typically about files. And so fortunately, we've been working on both fronts, but this is actually good validation for us. So thanks so much.
Yeah, really interesting. Okay, on automation, how do you get started? Well, first, of course, you want to identify a manual task that, and then you want to, this is a really great chart. You want to talk a little bit about this chart, Dale?
Yes, and so I really should tip my hat to Kate Tunsil from Arup, who a couple of years ago, it's actually almost 3 years ago now, did a webinar with us, and we got the link there. And when you get the slides afterwards, you can go check it out. But she talked all about how automation was making a difference within their organization, and she had this really interesting chart that says how much time, it compares how much time you're going to save by whatever automation thing you do, by how often do you do it. And it really quickly piles up. So it's this sort of trade-off between how much effort is it worth to set up the automation versus the long-term payoff. And she told in that webinar several stories of things where she spent maybe a couple of hours and it was saving one of her teammates a day per month. So the return on investment, was very, very large. And so this is why you see automation becoming so important. And Don and I have talked lots about things like IFFT. How many F's is there? If this, then that. I might have it wrong. But anyway, that service, or Zapier, depending on how you pronounce it, those are kind of more simple automation tools. Autodesk within their cloud offering has white labeled something called Workato. These are all around gluing things together and making stuff just happen instead of humans having to do it manually. And we like to think that we've got a superset of all that functionality that we continue to refine that can even introduce more power into that whole equation to improve this ROI opportunity.
Exactly, and it's all about ROI. So you can even, it's a great chart, because if it's a task that's 6 hours, and many organizations do have tasks that are monthly or quarterly that require huge amounts of human effort. And if you can manually replace the manual work with the automation, you're going to save yourself tons of time, and that directly contributes to the ROI, the value you're getting from the tool, but also your data. Because if something takes 6 hours of work, maybe before you only did it once a month. If you completely automate it, now you can do it once a week, because now you've removed the most expensive and the most value asset within your organization, which is people. So,
and another point is that if something is taking 6 hours to do, I mean, I'm a big fan of humans in general, but humans can make mistakes, and especially if they're doing something repetitive and all the time. And so figuring out how to automate that, I know software can have bugs, but generally if it starts to work, it's going to keep working. And and so there's a quality value in automation as well.
That's right. That's right. So really, what you want to do is, you want to identify those manual tasks, and then you want to, introduce a process. And also, we've had organizations using, web-based technologies that then they can share them throughout the organization through a web-based portal, self-service. So that's really great. Yeah. Okay, so time for some questions, Steph?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay,
let me just pull them up. We got a lot of great comments and questions coming in. So one quickly that I will answer is, will this presentation be available afterwards? And yes, it will. Everyone will get a link to the recording and the slides. So all the links in the slides you will have access to as well. And we will send an email shortly after the webinar. Okay. Why would, oh, here we go. Dale, you were referring to this one. What is the difference between an automation tool like IFTTT and FME?
Well, I'll take a stab at it. IFTTT, there I at least got the, thank you for getting the letters correct. Those are, first of all, they're very impressive with what they can do, and they're really very powerful. But what FME adds is a whole additional layer of power on top of that. So we can make all kinds of more fine-grained decisions, move larger data volumes as well as message level ones. And so really it's about kind of the complexity of the problem that you want to solve. And so that's what, I mean, we're fans of things like Zapier and IFTTT, but I think that there comes a point where you kind of cross over and you need some more power, and that's what we hope we bring to the table.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, as Dale said, those tend to be, something happens in system A, I'm going to push it to system B. Whereas with FME, you can, embrace the entire enterprise integration pattern framework, and then start breaking down silos and pulling data from multiple systems.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Okay, maybe we'll take 2 more from the audience. So we'll do this one here. As someone considering a career shift from engineering to data science, do you see this shift getting more and more difficult over time as the industry advances? Would this change be worth it in the way that the data industry is moving?
So maybe I'll take a start at that. First of all, it's always dangerous to give career advice. But in general, actually, the first thing I'll say is we've got a blog that actually I saw on Twitter from Carlos da Silva a couple days ago. I posted it, and we'll be referring to it. But it was talking about data engineering as kind of an intermediate step between kind of where you are right now in engineering and data science. And actually, the article made the point that there's actually a lot more demand for data engineers, which is all around people who know how to take the raw material of data and get it into a form that then a data scientist can use. So if anything, that article would argue that data engineering, which sounds like it's closer, it's the midway point between the two spots that you've got, might be a better one. And I think that it's always good to learn new skills and try new things. And so, and in technology, unfortunately, because of the pace of change, if you don't keep on top, it is a higher mountain to climb later on. So, of course, you can always learn anything at any time, but the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago, and the next best time, I think, is today, as far as I know.
Awesome, good advice. Okay, last one. First, I'll mention this comment from Larry. 15-minute daily tasks don't seem worth automating, but when you turn that into 1 to 2 minutes a day, that time saved up adds up really fast. And I think that is a great comment.
And it also makes you happier too, because none of us enjoy those, every day you got to do that, find time for that 15-minute manual task. If you can just, turn it into a 2-minute task, then that's much more enjoyable. Because as humans, as Dale mentioned, we don't like those repetitive tasks. We like the stuff that we actually have to think about, and we're adding more value doing that. Yeah.
Totally. All right, last question on automation. Automation is sometimes requested to fix not working manual processes. In my experience, this tends to fail. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think if you can't do a task manually, then trying to automate something that you can't figure out how to do manually is not a good strategy. Generally at Safe even, we say, let's figure out how to do it manually in a repeatable fashion, and then we can bring in automation. Now, having said that, if the problem with your manual task is around data quality, then FME could help you with the, verify the quality of the data, so that when you do your manual tasks, then you can, it can become more predictable. So maybe there's, maybe the manual task is not really repetitive per se, because the data coming in is so variable. So I would say, try to make sure that, a manual task, even all the data is in the state that you can do the manual task, and then you can move to automating that task. Yeah.
And I would just tack on one other thing. Dawn has often said, I'm going to put words in your mouth, but I'm pretty sure you've said this, that any working complicated system has come out of a simple system. And so don't go for the home run at the beginning. Get something simple working, and then add on to that. And some of the projects we've seen where people have troubles, they often start with too ambitious, and then there's too many unknown things along the journey. So starting simple, get that going. When you love it, okay, then start adding on. That's a good strategy.
Yeah, and you can bet any workspace you see that has, is massive, started off as something really small, and just grew from there. Yeah.
Great advice. All right, you guys can keep going with the presentation.
Okay, I don't have to do anything. Okay, there we go. So so the next topic is near and dear to our heart, and it's leverage more data types. Because really when you think about data integration, we have the periodic table of the elements there, and what's that about? Well, you can think of each data type as kind of an element, right? And so if you pick on copper does have some value. And you can get lots of value from copper or one system. But the true magic with, elements of matter and with data is when you start combining them together in, new and interesting and fascinating ways. So that's truly the what data integration is all about. And that's why it's so important to pick a tool that has as many data types supported as possible, so that then as all these new data types come online and continue to grow, you're able to really leverage them all. Yeah. Yeah. And if you see the good work of Dimitri, Dale, like,
Yeah.
He's always working with multiple data types and things like that. So yeah.
I was joking with Don that really our users are data alchemists, where
Yes.
they use earth, wind, and fire to make gold. Don's a bit more scientific with his approach than mine, but
it's the same thing, right? Like, and in some sense, take those things and spin gold, like information gold from all your earth, wind, and fire. And good movie, by the way, was The Fifth Element. Yeah, but I won't share any spoilers there, but yeah. So, yeah. And yeah, on data types, one that's obviously near and dear to our heart, this is where SAFE started. And we've expanded to support spatial in all data types, as you see in that chart. But now spatial data is growing in importance in the organization. So yeah.
Yeah, but there's some big developments this year, and we've got a link to I can't remember if that's a webinar or a blog or both, but we did both in the last year, looking at some of these trends where Google BigQuery, the big database company Snowflake that had a huge IPO, Spatial was added to them, and on the Amazon side, I think Redshift, as well as others, they have very deep spatial support in all the Amazon offerings.
Yeah, yeah. And when you see these big vendors adding support for spatial, they're doing it because they see a need and an opportunity to grow their businesses and help their customers. Yeah.
So the bonus slide in this area is just in the last few weeks, we've come across a couple of new entrants. Unfolded, Unfolded.ai. I've got the link in there. You can check them out. They have a very interesting platform for dealing with high data volumes, high spatial data volumes. Ironically, okay, I'll get into that in a second. And the second folks are the Cockroach DB people who have a cloud-based database who've also added spatial support. What's really fascinating about these two, and I realized that after I put them on the same slide when I was doing some thinking, Unfolded is based on R&D efforts that came out of Uber for managing huge data volumes and resulting in a library called H3, which incidentally FME is going to be supporting. And we're going to do a webinar on H3 with one of the founders of Unfolded later this, well, I think it's in, not this month, but it's in February. But so Uber H3 is what fuels Unfolded's efforts. And on the Cockroach Lab side, their spatial stuff is built on top of Google's S2 library. So an S2 is a library for indexing the whole globe as well in a different way. So you have these two that kind of took R&D efforts that came out of some giants and are really focused in on supplying some cloud-based tools that are meant to help the enterprises. So pretty interesting developments there.
Yeah, absolutely. So much activity in the spatial arena. It's for years it really was sort of off to the side in the mapping or the GIS or the the engineering when you looked at utilities. Now it's part of the organization. I think one of the reasons is we're all now carrying these devices so that we all now know precisely where we are at all times, and that's a game changer. Whereas, Dale and I remember the old flip phones. As cool as they were, they didn't have any way to show you where you actually were. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And and real-time data. I mean, this is another, if we go back to our periodic table there, you can think of the different types of the different types of state of data. Mm-hmm. And so for data, we have, we have batch processing, which is important. You have transactional processing, which is important. And with the proliferation of sensors and 5Gs, we're really seeing the growth of real-time data. And it's only going to, as these sensors become cheaper and more common, we're just going to see this type of data again. So that's sort of like, I'm a guy, I love metaphors. That's sort of like solid, liquid, and gas, Dale.
Yes.
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah.
I guess sometimes at FME, we use FME to boil or to turn the solids into liquids and the liquids into gas.
That's right. Yeah, and you can witness that sometimes on your laptop because the fan will kick in. Yeah, so you can just see some of the examples of where real-time data is going through, and there's just different types of it, and yeah.
We've got some great things in store when you think about our product line in this year. to address these, and some pretty clever things that we're going to be able to do. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, do you want to talk to this one, Dale?
Yeah, just kind of an endpoint for data. The one that we see emerging fast is the whole world of augmented reality. Now, this has been around for several years and slowly getting more and more powerful in cheaper and cheaper devices. And and we've been trying to keep pace there. But one of the big innovations that our one of our engineers, Dimitri, came up with this year was the idea of, I like to call it a portable hole, a little reference to a 50s, politically incorrect 50s Bugs Bunny cartoon that I grew up watching. But nonetheless, the idea of a portable hole in AR where you project down and then you can look inside and see what's there. And that's pretty powerful, and we've done some work with that. So yeah, FME is actually a great platform for taking various bits of data, running it through, and delivering it to a mobile device for use in this way. And I don't know that it's going to be this year, but I'm going to be surprised if within the next 2 years we don't have augmented reality in our glasses to some degree. And so it's going to become ever more accessible. And I guess the last thing is we put a lot of effort into making what we call geo-aware augmented reality. So it really knows where you are, and we can make decisions based on that.
Yeah. And with Apple, the recent devices having the LiDAR camera in is really, makes the, really can make the AR more interesting in some sense. So that picture at the top there, that's a TikTok thing in which AR is part of their platform. The confetti actually uses the LiDAR camera to land on the person in it. So it's again, and at SAFE, of course, we're working closely with that device to see how we can engage that LiDAR camera to help make the AR experience that much better. So it's just interesting to see the proliferation and how this is becoming part of the platform, both on the Apple and some other tools. So exciting area to watch. And of course, data is the key. If you don't have the data, then the AR for what we're doing for utilities and local government is not easy to do. And we do all the data. So that's the other part. Yeah. Okay. So time for some more questions, Steph?
Questions. I'm looking at the time. We will take a couple. We might have overestimated the time that we need. I think we advertise this as a 40-minute webinar. Okay. We might end up going a bit over, so I'll just let people know that might be the case. And I don't think we should rush through it. I think take your guys' time, and if anyone has to leave, we can always send them the recording afterwards.
That's right.
But okay, so let's take some questions. Why do you think it took so long for companies like Snowflake and Google to add support for spatial?
Well, I'll start. And one thing is, it's very hard. So that's one of the things about spatial data is that it's sort of deceptively simple, and then you start getting into it, and there's all kinds of edge cases and special issues, and especially when you start to scale it to huge data volumes, you have to apply some really clever insights. And these companies are all doing that, but without kind of denigrating our friends that only work with non-spatial or tabular data, it's a lot harder to index spatial data and to manage the complexities between relationships for that than it is between, say, salaries or employee numbers.
Yeah, and I'll say that I think they make databases, and now I think the fact that these common cloud-based databases are now supporting spatial is because of the demands there, right? They see Snowflake's pricing model is interesting. It's per CPU. It doesn't matter how big your data is. They just flow all that through. And so the great thing about spatial, as Dale said, the processing can be quite heavy, and so and their clients want it because where is the customer? Everything happens somewhere, everything is somewhere, and every person is always somewhere. So now if you can incorporate that into your decisions, you can make much more targeted decisions that can help you against your competitors.
Is there a timeline for one-to-one and location-aware FME AR on Android?
Yes. So Android has absolutely lagged behind iOS, and there's a few reasons for that. The traditional ones where when you're developing on iOS, you at least know every device is going to behave in a similar way. And the second thing is the APIs, bluntly, are a little easier to work with on the iOS side of things. But that said, we have increased the size of our mobile team, and there's actually a couple of people working on the Android side right now. It is a big job. It's probably going to involve us reimagining the FME AR file format even. So there's a bunch of work happening, and you definitely will want to watch this space, because there's going to be exciting things in this year, or even, I don't want to say this quarter, but this half for sure.
Yeah, and I'd say the Android device is behind as well. And I wouldn't, those two are always playing leapfrog, and I wouldn't be surprised if, some future device from Android looks at what Apple's done and incorporates some of that as well. So yeah, AR is very much front and center of Apple when you go to their events and their latest iPhone announcement, where that wouldn't be the case with Android yet. But
yeah,
and I have no insider knowledge, so don't,
Okay, maybe last question. Will there be a native reader for OGC Sensor Things API or MQTT streams?
Yeah, I mean, why not? Sure. Yeah, so send us the detail. I mean, that's part of what this is about too, telling us what's important, but there's no reason why not. We're in the process. We're always adding new support for OGC APIs and the streaming stuff. That's not one that's come up, but the nice thing about SAFE is until we start something, we're always evaluating what we're going to do next. So yeah, so please do send in the information on that. Yeah.
MQTT. There is an MQTT.
Yeah, go ahead, Dale.
There is an MQTT connector.
That's right, but not the OGC thing. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's it for questions for this section.
Okay, so evolution to the cloud. So so really we're seeing a trend here, serverless, and some of the things. Whoa, what happened there? Well, that's obviously I got excited again. There we go. And so some of the things driving the evolution to the cloud, of course, the pandemic has forced much of the workforce to work remotely, and cloud-based systems, just play to that because they don't know whether you're in the office or when you're remote. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's and in the case of Safe Software, we went from everybody being in the office on like whatever was March the 10th, and March the 11th, bang, everybody was not. And because so much of our infrastructure was cloud-based, we hardly missed a beat. And that's and so that experience has been happening all over the place. And those companies that weren't already in the cloud, I think, have been trying to get there in an ever increasing time. And I do think this whole serverless side is kind of the missing piece that has been the last thing to fall. And it's going to be very exciting to see that roll out, and the impacts that's going to have are great. It affects business models. Like even for us, we're going to have, or we do already have, the ability to buy processing time, and that's what's needed for this type of technology to work.
Yeah, so serverless is really exciting. We've had it for services for a while. There was Lambda, there was databases, of course, but now with Fargate and things like that, now you can just pay by the CPU second what you use, and it's super exciting. Yeah. And so as people out there, you want to make sure. And the other thing about cloud is there's more than one cloud vendor, and they're all working hard. So you're going to want to for your cloud technology, you're going to want to make sure that you don't locked into one. You should have a cloud strategy that enables you to be nimble and move from things to thing. And the way we were able to do that largely with the compute side is we've really embraced Kubernetes. And all the cloud vendors are working to support Kubernetes, and that just is a game changer for us. Yeah. Good. Okay.
I think maybe there weren't any questions that came in there, Steph, or were there?
No, we got a question. Hang on here.
Okay.
Are you seeing traditionally on-premises organizations begin to shift to the cloud? And why do you think they're doing that?
Yeah, absolutely they are. One would be this whole elasticity and scalability. You don't have to, procure hardware to meet the peaks. You can scale up and down. And again, the workforce largely moving out of the office was huge, because if everybody's dialing into your office, you're going to need amazing infrastructure and bandwidth to be able to support that. And with the cloud, you do not need to do that. So yeah, we're seeing it starts slow because of course, there's like, oh, if I put my data in the cloud, it's not secure. Where that totally is not the case, where there's many cases now showing that data in the cloud is actually, more secure than data within an organization. And so, yeah.
Actually, when we were prepping these slides, we looked back, and it was, I think, around 10 years ago when we started working with cloud stuff. It was some on the line may remember a company called WeoGeo, and they were real pioneers. And they worked with us / we worked with them, and they were using FME in the cloud already back then. And so we were way ahead of the market. But it's like many of these things that you kind of slowly, you don't realize it, but all of a sudden one day you go, wait a minute. The market is actually caught up, and it's now not a scary thing to be talking about stuff being cloud hosted. And so I think we're well past that tipping point now. And if anything, it's just accelerating this move.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's it for now.
Good. So you want to lead this section there, Dale?
Sure. We'll talk a little bit about artificial intelligence and some of the ways that it impacts things with respect, at the very least, to customer experience. And so go ahead, Don. Yeah, so what we are really looking to try to do is see how we can add more smarts into, and we're not the only ones, all vendors are really doing this. How do we make use of machine learning or really fancy statistics to try to help people be more productive with their work? And so this type of thing needs lots and lots of input data and lots of grinding and lots of smart things to go on. But in the end, you can end up with a delightful user experience. And Don and I are both Tesla guys. We've been collecting data for Tesla for years and years, and that's being fed into some giant machine somewhere that then tries to create a machine that's going to drive as good as Don and I do. Isn't that exciting?
Yeah, well, I remember I was on a road trip with Grant, and somebody said, Grant, how did you feel when you were with Don, when the autopilot kicked in? And he said, I felt better when the autopilot was running than when Don was.
But that's an example of data being collected in the large and being ground to produce a better user experience. Of course, it's safe. In our case, we can try to predict what transformer you're likely to use next, or what format. If you're going to predict what format, we would always just put down shape. And if Don got in there, he would put down an XML, but that wouldn't be a statistical thing. But you can use these kind of things. Actually, if any of you use Gmail or Google Docs, they're already helping you. They predict what words you're likely to use next, and hit the tab key, and it basically writes your essay for you. So it's that type of thing we think is going to continue to happen more and more. And there's a fine line between being creepy and being helpful. And so it's a challenge for all of us to see what we can do. But this is all around grinding large amounts of data to try to help make better outcomes for people.
That's right. That's right. And a lot of us, we're experiencing this and we don't even know. And that's probably the most valuable kind, where it happens invisibly. We don't even know that machine learning is helping us, and we just think we're like smarter today than we were yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll talk about this one. Yeah.
Yeah. This was, again, Carlos da Silva posted this article by Mihail Eric, who wrote a summary of the importance of data engineering as a field. And to be honest with you, I actually, before this article, hadn't even thought of this as a field, data engineering. And if you read this, it goes into some detail about the demand for jobs in this. And this is all around preparing data for machine learning. So it's all great to do the machine learning, but you got to get the data into good shape from wherever it is to be ready to be used. And that's actually kind of the road to the gold rush field, is preparing this data. Like, that's the story. The people who went up to do the mining didn't make the money, but the people who sold goods to those people did. And so the data engineers are really selling the picks and shovels to the people trying to do machine learning. So this is a quote from that article about how the bottleneck to get machine learning and insights is centered around data problems. You solve the data problems, now you're unleashed to get the real value. And one of the lines in there, how do you move it from A to B, really resonated with me, and I'm sure the FME audience that's tuned in today as well. So check out that article, and I'm going to reach out to Mihail, because I think he's really up to some interesting stuff there. It looks like he works for folks in Albuquerque in the city and urban, applying basically data to make better decisions in both crime mapping and urban planning in Albuquerque.
Yeah, and some of the things you highlighted there are exactly what we're all about, right? Cleaning, data quality, data validation is a huge use. How do you make decisions if your data is not accurate, right? You can't, yeah. And it also ties into this next thing, like metadata is really important to a data engineer because you have to know what, where you are, what you got. Oh, sorry, Steph, we're gonna do the questions. I got excited there.
Okay, sorry. There was a question actually from the last section on cloud. When will FME server be available on AWS Marketplace?
2021, this year. So we're waiting on some financial abilities with AWS. Currently, you need to be located in the US or Europe. You cannot be located in Canada, but we're told that's going to change in 2021. So so it's not a technical reason at all. It's a business thing. Yeah. So
not in Canada, eh? Pity.
That's right.
There's a reference to a commercial from the 70s. I wonder if anybody knows the commercial.
I'll answer this question quickly. Are the links in the chat also shared with the webinar recording? No, they are not, but they are included in the slide deck, which you will have access to. But
right.
If there are any links that you want to save that are being chat out, I do recommend that you do that. Okay, so going back to the section on customer, oh gosh, I'm missing the word, but customer experience. Is SAFE planning to implement this trend of improving the customer experience through all those means?
Well, we are. I mean, it's a hard problem, but for us, the holy grail to unlock is trying to predict what transformer people are wanting to use next and making that easy to get at. And we've got, kind of like Elon Musk with his driving data, we've got the equivalent in FME because we have, I think, more than 10 years of usage stats from those people who have opted in that can help us at least suggest a handful of things. And Don has pointed out quite often, we start combining the data. If we know you're working with rasters, we probably shouldn't give you the point cloud transformers as a good choice. If you're working with shape files, you probably don't need the things to resample a raster either. So we can narrow down and try it. And then it's a design issue about how to present it. We've actually been hiring designers at SAFE and pretty excited about some of the stuff coming out of that. So it is on the roadmap. People are working on it. I don't think you're going to be blown away in the next 3 months or 6 months, but give us a year, 18 months, and you're going to start to see some big changes.
Very cool. Was the commercial for Red Rose Tea?
Yes. Who is that person?
Mitchell. Well done.
About my age.
Yeah, I remember you used to get those figurines in Red Rose Tea, so that's my age. So there you go.
I don't know what you're referring to.
Steph has no idea what we're even talking about. Okay.
Okay, you guys can finish this last section, and then there's a couple more coming in.
Okay, so metadata is a big deal. It's data about data, and yeah, and it answers questions. What is this data about? Because when you start sharing data, people need to even understand what the columns mean, right? So what is the data about, and where did it come from? What's happened to it? So yeah, so you want to talk a bit more about this one, Dale?
First, I have to do your joke, Don, where Don has said he's never metadata he doesn't like.
That's right. Never metadata I don't like. Yeah.
So I got to get that joke out. But we recently had some customer, or actually had a great call with someone saying that they had done all this processing, and at the end of it, there was a problem, and then they were trying to figure out where did it go wrong, and they couldn't remember. They didn't have written down what happened. And so these kind of reports that would tell you, I started with this shapefile, I applied these transformations, and here's what I have. You can see that visually inside of a workspace, but actually getting a printed report or some kind of tabular thing that went field by field and feature type by feature type or table by table and told you this, I think would be pretty valuable. And we work, of course, with Gartner, and they've identified that this is a key thing. And I think for some of our customers, this is going to fall in the category of things that they didn't know they didn't know. They didn't know how valuable this would be because this area is not something that, at least in the traditional GIS industry, was a big deal. And so we're really excited about seeing what we can do here and how we can begin to add some value in this whole zone.
Yeah, and as organizations' data assets just explode, you really have to get a handle on your data, and metadata can help you do that. Otherwise, you end up in a situation like I'm in with pictures. You know,
Yeah.
I have pictures just scattered all over, and boy, oh boy, I wish there was some metadata. And Apple and all the tools, they try to help me because they introduced this thing called faces metadata. So the tools try to identify all the faces and then the places, and trying to help me, who's completely disorganized with photos, get them under control. And it's a similar thing in an organization. If you have data scattered all over the place, you don't know where it is, then how do you control it to get, you know, maximize the value from it?
Yeah.
Okay, we got some questions, and then a bonus one, Dale, because we believe in this one more thing.
So what do you got for us, Steph?
Okay, what's worse, no metadata or incorrect metadata?
Oh
boy, I'm gonna say it depends how incorrect. I'm gonna say, because you might know where it came from, but you might not know how it's used, and or you might, you know, so yeah. I think getting started on the metadata trend is definitely a good thing. I think you'll be surprised what you discover, you know. So yeah.
I'm going to go with the no metadata. And actually, I just spent some time over the holidays trying to organize some old photos, get back to Dawn's thing. And actually, what was worse in those photos is that some of them had incorrect times inside them. So they had EXIF data that said they were taken in 1980, which was a lie. And it would have been, and they actually slipped through because I had this fancy FME process that was kind of managing the dates. And all of a sudden I get to the end and a whole bunch of stuff says 1980. And I was kind of mad, like, where did this come from? Because I was theoretically fixing the stuff, but the ones that had the wrong stuff in were way worse than the ones that didn't have anything at all. So based on that tiny little life example, I'm going to go with incorrect is worse than none. Okay. So
yeah, good.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's it for metadata.
Okay, so our bonus trend, and
yes.
yeah, so sometimes there's technology that comes out that cuts across everything we've talked about today. And in the last 6 months, Dale and I have been talking about this one. So we first saw it on the desktop side, and then there was a huge announcement on the cloud side. So so the ARM processor, we think this is changes the game. Dale's talk a little bit about your experience with the M1.
Yeah, so my neighbor, I helped her move from an old, like a 10-year-old Mac to a modern MacBook Air that was an M1 based one, my first one that I ever. So over the holidays, I got to play with one for a couple of days, and I was astonished at that device, at how, you know, Don talked about the fan running and to kind of melt your data solids and turn them into liquid or gas. But on this thing, the fan never ran. It was super quiet. And I did some stress tests using Intel FME for the Mac. And I was stunned that they, first of all, worked at all. Like it just worked. And it was only maybe about 12 or 13% slower on a new MacBook Air than my fancy pants, top of the line MacBook Pro Intel. That's actually the most recent one. So there we have kind of the bottom end of the new ones, basically being competitive with the top end of the old ones and making no noise. Like mine, when I run it, the fan, you know, it's ready for that laptop to take off. And this thing just sat there and ground away wide open. So we think that these ARM processors are a huge deal. And I think Don's got a slide. Does he? No, he doesn't, about gravity. Oh yeah, there it is on this slide about graviton. That when you read the case studies at AWS and their ARM results, basically 40% less cost. And even for safe, that would be a huge deal if we could cut our Amazon costs by 40%. And I can only imagine for other organizations.
Yeah. And the reason is, why is it lower cost? Well, they use way less electricity, so they use way less heat, which means Amazon can pack them closer and tighter together, which means they can get more processing power into their data centers. So, you know, you have to remember, with these data centers, for every watt of processing power, they probably need about another watt of cooling. And so, you know, so the smaller, faster is huge for them. And and both of those, if you click on the pictures, you'll see links. Probably we'll make it more obvious when we share the deck, but hugely exciting. And for us, it's not we're not scared, because we used to run on IBM AIX HPUX and Solaris and Deck Alpha. And so we're in the process right now of working towards having the engine run natively on ARM, and after that the whole workbench running natively in ARM. So Dale's talking about how it's just a tiny bit slower, and it's basically interpreting the Intel processor instructions. I'm sure it's building a cache somewhere, but when we compile natively, it's going to be super exciting. And you should look for the FME platform on both of those. And so again, when you're looking at vendors, you're going to want to make sure that you choose technology that is nimble and is able to, move and exploit all these cost effective ways of processing your data. So it's important.
Yeah, it's truly a major development that I think has been it's been there under our noses forever. Kind of jokingly, we had a couple of engineers once on a week sort of do anything they want, try to port FME to the Raspberry Pi. I know my son, just for a lark, has a hacked Nintendo Switch, and he started building, he can run Linux on there, and he started trying to build FME for the Nintendo Switch. Not a big market for that, I don't think, but these are all ARM based, and now it's a serious thing. Like, it's no longer just sort of and actually, if we get this going, we could imagine running this thing on like some kind of Pi cluster.
Definitely. There's Hadoop clusters based on ARM out there, so it opens up it's really exciting. So any questions, Steph, or we?
No, I think bring it home and then we can take some at the end.
Okay, sounds good. So so really the theme is that SAFE, we spend all our time thinking about data, and truly for business, it's all about getting the most value they can from all their data holdings and their the data that they can pull from applications to make better. At the end of the day, it's all about making the best decision you can given the data that you have at your fingertips, and being able to pull data from all those different types of data, leverage all the machine learning, the cloud technologies that are at your disposal will truly help organizations, as we say there, win the marketplace.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so there you go. So make sure you follow us on all the social media platforms. There's lots of activity going on there, and one great thing is every Wednesday we have What's Up Wednesdays, I think it's called, and you can see, get a sort of a viewpoint into all the exciting things going on at SAFE. So so please do that.
Yeah, I think the social media actually is a good thing to mention, because while we are doing a whole webinar trends here, as we see them, we post them and like reshare them on social media. So this webinar does happen throughout the year, just at a much smaller scale.
And Dimitri's, follow him too, or follow SAFE and you'll see him. He does amazing things. He's sort of our FME adventurer who's always building interesting things. He's been playing around a lot with AR. So if you want to follow and see what we're all doing, make sure to follow us there too. So
I want to just publicly mention there was a question, or sorry, Paul, a question or a comment from Dor came in and says he has to say something about Dimitri. He worked closely with him regarding AR, and he's just amazing. He helped us a lot, and we get an amazing product thanks to him. And I know that Dimitri's been working with some partners and users around the world that are taking the ideas that we've ground, or that Dimitri's innovated, and actually turning it into real solutions. And so thanks so much, Dor, and I know Dimitri will be happy to get that feedback.
I like the comment from Peter. FME on Raspberry Pi would be fun. He's been using ARM since 1990.
Wow.
And if anybody out there just wants FME to have fun and play around with and learn it and prototype or anything like that, just reach out to us. We're happy to provide you with licenses, and we will want to hear what you do so that we can promote it and share it with the community at large. So we have a really active community at SAFE, FME community. What is it? Community.safe.com, I think.
Safe.com/community. I'll chat.
There you go. Safe.com/community.
Hey, Don, Francisco asks, how do they enroll, or how do they get to that What's Up Wednesday group? And honestly, I don't even know myself. So where is that at, or what?
That's done by the experts and then promoted by our social media person. I believe it's done by Liz.
It's written by Liz and posted on the community. I can share a link.
It's really good. Yeah, it's really good. So I tune into our social every Wednesday just to see all the good stuff going on, and it's fun. And yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. More questions coming in. Why are features written to ArcGIS portal? Wait, why are features written to ArcGIS portal change all the field? Why does it change all the field names to small case?
These are the mysteries we don't know. So sounds like there's an opportunity for quoting somewhere. So I'm going to ask the experts team maybe to take that one. I don't think ArcGIS portal forces stuff that way. It's got to be something in our handshake and interface. I know that there's been issues like this with PostGIS before, and I can never remember if it's uppercase or lowercase. Some of the database are case insensitive. Others want you to force it one way or the other. But
Right.
If this is bothering you, Doris, we should look into it. So we will.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't looked into the webinar on the cloud webinar on the SAFE website, but I'm curious, do you also support Microsoft Azure on cloud?
Absolutely. And you'll find the entire platform on the Azure Marketplace. So you can go to the Azure Marketplace and just launch right from there. Yep. And also the Google Marketplace. And yeah, and we have people running the FME platform on pretty much any cloud. So you could say IBM or DigitalOcean or Alibaba or so. Yeah. But it's on the Azure Marketplace, so that makes it really easy.
It is true that at least I'm fairly, in my mind, fairly AWS centric because we've been using it for so long. And so that is a thing I need to work on, because it is, like Don said, all of our stuff was working everywhere. And we work very hard to support all the services of the different cloud platforms as well. And there's connectors and so on. But if I'm not careful, I will always just talk about AWS.
Yeah, and the exciting thing on the Azure Marketplace is we actually have the ability for you to launch multi-machine instances of FME server. So you can have an FME server, one machine running the core, and then you can bring up and down as many other machines that have engines, so you can do scaling that way. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, I think in the last minute here, we'll take, I see another question. So any last questions, get them in. Will desktop transformers be containerized?
No, that's not on the plan at this point. Yeah.
To shrink the installer, I think that there's, well, we wouldn't containerize individual transformers, but we are looking at a trend where we try to convert more and more things into packages. And that way, if you never use raster, you don't have to have any of the raster stuff installed. That is a long-term dream, and infrastructure is being built. Modern stuff, lots of it is being made in packages. And so if you don't use MQTT, you don't have that installed in your computer. But that'll be the path. It won't be containers, it'll be packages, and it won't happen overnight. But
okay, which of these trends are you most excited about?
Yes, am I allowed to pick more than one? If I can pick two, I'm going to say I'm really excited about evolution to the cloud and automation. And those things go hand in hand, because our automations at SAFE, it's really easy to introduce parallelism to solve problems. And so the trend there is making smaller and smaller workspaces, and then automations just inherently make it parallel. So if then you push it to the cloud with multiple machine instances underneath or multiple engines underneath, it just happens for you and you don't even have to think about it.
And if I was to pick one, I think I would go for the chance for us to use AI and machine learning to really help customers across our whole system by being smarter and just making, like Don said, make it happen in such a way that they don't even notice that it's there. Then we'll know that we're fully successful.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think then we are at time. Actually, we are at 20 minutes over time. We got a lot of great questions.
Yes.
Yeah, I think in the run through, we didn't factor in how much time we would spend taking questions, but they were so good, we had to do it.
Yeah, it's fun.
So what we will do now, I think, is we can turn off our webcams. I'll leave the webinar running for another 5 minutes. And if you guys want to save any of the answers we gave you, save any of the links, you can go ahead and do that, or get any last questions typed to us and we can answer behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But
perfect. And thanks everybody for attending and for the SAFE staff. And if anybody out there has questions they think of later, please do reach out to us. This is part of an ongoing discussion, and trends and change in industry never stop. And we don't for an instant think that Dale and I see it all. So a lot of this is from interactions we have with people who are, you know, out in the field and working with the technology. So please do keep engaged. It makes it more fun, particularly when we're all locked up in our rooms by ourselves, you know. So anything we can do to meet new people and learn new things is great.
Yeah, thanks so much everybody for tuning in and sharing this time with us, and for your questions and insights as well. Deeply appreciated.